What's up, everybody? This is Kevin with Everglades Canine Academy, and today I am showing you a little lesson with Shadrach, our beautiful Rhodesian Ridgeback. We are going to do a little bit more of an advanced lesson. I've been working on Shadrach with leash pressure techniques, specifically in escaping leash pressure. Okay, so this is a little bit more advanced of a technique because it requires a little bit more force on the dog. When you're applying pressure with the leash to get a dog into position, the one thing that I consider it a little more advanced is the dog may struggle during that pressure when you're first introducing it to the dog. And if you relieve pressure before you get the position you want, the dog will learn to fight the leash. That's why it's very important if you're applying pressure to the dog to know what you're doing. So these are some of the things that we're going to go through today to ensure that you know what you're doing. All right. Now, the very first position we apply pressure in for the dog is a sit position. Okay. And that is pressure being applied, steady pressure being applied straight up until the dog sits. Then we release the pressure. All right. That is how the dog learns to follow the leash and accept the guidance of the leash. And the reward for that is pressure being released. Okay. Notice I don't have any treats on me today. Shadrach had a full breakfast. All right. So we're working with pressure techniques. Okay. So the very first thing that we're going to do is sit. I grab the leash halfway up. I apply pressure straight up. Yes, still marking and rewarding. You see that? I'm not popping up. I'm holding straight up. Good boy. And my reward is affection at this point. Yes, good boy. And he's been doing such a good job. We've been working on this a little bit. The very first couple days that I was doing this, he was like struggling. He didn't want to do it. Maybe even a little bit of crying, right? And the point is that you have to maintain steady pressure. You cannot release if the dog is struggling, because then the dog will just learn to blow that pressure off. The dog will associate, all I need to do is struggle, wiggle, and cry, and the pressure will go away. And that's not what we want. We want the dog to subdue to the leash, okay? And that's why I consider these pressure exercises a little more advanced versus luring with your hand or with food. Shadrach, come. Sit. Yes. There we go. That time, no pressure, because what I'm doing is I'm giving the verbal reward or the verbal command first to see if he knows what that command is. If he wasn't going to sit, then I would use pressure, right? Shadrach, sit. Right? Not sitting. Now we apply pressure. Good boy. Good. So important that your commands have accountability. Yes. Here we go. And a good release. So when you're giving your dog commands, you might hear trainers say, don't repeat your commands. And that's very, very important. And you don't want to repeat your commands. You also need accountability. Why do we train? Because the dog might need to perform some of these commands when they don't want to. Okay? And if they don't want to and you don't let them, and you say sit and the dog doesn't sit, then the dog is just learning, okay, all of these words are just an option to me. Here, buddy. And you don't want your commands to become an option. Shadrach, sit. Good. Yes. Good boy. See that? So he's hearing, I know he hears me because I'm very loud. I'm standing right next to him. I'm saying his name. He knows his name. And he's hearing Shadrach sit, and he's not doing anything. And if I just allow him to not do anything, he's going to learn, well, I don't have to do anything, right? So that's why I really love using and practicing these pressure exercises, because the dogs need to listen when you tell them a command. You need to have accountability for your commands. All right. Now, sometimes I don't ask him to sit. I just use pressure. Good boy. Look at how nice that is, right? Just a couple days of practice, and this is the product that we're getting. Okay. I don't even have to say anything to him. The leash is doing all the talking. Yes. Good boy. Let's get a little close up here. Come. Sometimes I like to do it when we're both walking in the same direction. Let's go. My head might cut out, but that's okay. Shadrach, sit. Very good, right? And so, no. Good. So what's happening there, right? What's happening is that, There we go. So sit does not mean walk away. Sit does not mean lay down. Nope. Until I give him the reward marker, right? And this is how we start testing the dog, right? I'm going to walk away from him. I want him to hold the sit. No. No. This is a really good test. So he wants to break position, and I'm not going to let him, but I want him to hold it. I also want eye contact from him. Are you a good boy? Yes. There we go. Now we'll give him a little reward. That was good. So obviously none of this is planned when you're working with the dog. The dog's going to do what the dog wants to do, and it's our job as trainers, as owners, to have accountability with the dog. So he didn't want to hold his sit. He wanted to break. He wanted to walk away. He wanted to lay down. But none of those commands mean sit. So my job is to make sure he is held accountable in those situations, and I'm getting him to sit properly. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and walk forward again, and I'm not going to use verbal commands. All right, I do apologize for my head being cut off, but I don't really care about that. You should be looking at the dog and looking at what I'm doing with the leash. All right, so I'm going to walk forward so you can get a really good look at what I'm doing, and I'm just going to apply pressure with the leash. And I want you to see how I'm not popping. I'm holding steady. I'm not even going to give him a verbal command. Just straight up with the leash. Good. Once he sits, then we release. Yes. There we go. And he's a little hot, so he wants to lay down a little bit. All right, but that's okay. So the next thing I'm going to try, just to finish up, is leash pressure down. Here's another good example of leash pressure, okay? He is feeling a little, it's a little hot out, so we're not going to work him too hard, but he is feeling like he doesn't really want to do anything, okay? And I want him to walk forward a little bit. He's laying down. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do another escape pressure technique, okay? I want him to walk forward. I want him to walk forward with me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, below my waist, I'm going to apply pressure forward. I'm not going to pop. All right, I'm not going to jerk the leash or pop the leash. I'm going to hold steady pressure and tension until he gets up off the ground and walks with the leash. All right, so check this out. Easy. All right, he's not even putting up a fight, and I'm okay with that. Some dogs really bear down and they try to put up a fight, and you just want to hold steady pressure on the dog. Now we're going to move on to something that's a little more difficult for dogs. We're going to do pressure down into a down position. Okay, so this one is always more difficult. I'm actually pretty selective at what dogs I perform a forced down with. All right, Shadrach is having a pretty difficult time luring with food. I always try to lure with food, but he seems like he doesn't want to go down, or maybe he's not food motivated enough in the moment when I'm trying. So I started applying a little bit of pressure, and he started to come around to it really nicely. So this might be one way we're practicing. Now, when I do pressure in a down, I'm going to use my trash cans to kind of block him in. So it's going to be like me, the dog, and the trash cans. I'm going to sandwich him in between the trash cans so he can't wiggle his butt if he builds up a little frustration towards the pressure. All right. My goal is to apply pressure down. I'm not going to pop it down. I'm going to do steady pressure from a stand position. All right. And then once he goes down, I'm going to relieve pressure, and then I'm going to mark and reward. Okay. Isn't he so cute? He's smelling his butt. Why is that cute? I don't know. Okay, so here we go. We're going to go ahead and line them up with the cans. And we're going to do steady pressure down. Yes, very good. Look at that. And you see he's getting into a nice position because he's bowing right before he goes down. Okay. Here he goes. He finds a sniff. Okay, so here we go. Here's an example of him being lackadaisical and not wanting to do anything. Now look, I'm applying steady pressure on the leash. Good, good boy. I want him to listen to the leash because this also, all this helps with leash pulling, okay? Yes, good boy. Here we go. Now we're going to work him into a down. Come. I'm using leash pressure. Nope. There we go. Good boy. And steady pressure down, not too hard, just enough. He's a very tall dog. There we go. We have a little bit of resistance. Yes, good boy. So proud of him for doing that. Good. Leash pressure is not the easiest exercises, right? Like I love when they just lure down for food and you get to reward them with food, but some dogs have a harder time with that. And sometimes the only way to show the dog is to apply a little bit of pressure on them. And it can be difficult, you guys. So if you are trying these downward pressure exercises, the most important thing is that if your dog is struggling and fighting, you need to maintain pressure as hard as it is, because if, let's say you're pulling down on the dog and the dog, a lot of them don't like it. So they go, no, I don't like that. Oh my God. And they kind of have a little fit, right? If you're like, oh, I feel bad, and you release the pressure, then the dog learns all I need to do is just wiggle out of any of this pressure from the leash and I can get out of it, because we know that canines learn by association, right? So that is the hardest part about these pressure exercises. I highly recommend that you do consult a professional, obviously, if you're looking at wanting to do some of these pressure exercises, or do your research, know exactly what you're doing so you don't, injure your dog, because you do need the right type of pressure. You can't go too hard. You also can't go too soft, right? You need to figure out the pressure level that you need to apply to get your dog to perform. Let's give Shadrach one more shot so we can show you guys the pressure down position, and then we're going to go ahead and end the session. Shadrach, come. Good boy. Now we're not going to sandwich him so much. Let's bring him a little closer. Good. Good boy. That's a good boy. Nope. So not until we give him the release reward marker. So here we go. Now we're starting to see a little bit of resistance. There we go. Good boy. Good. No. So not until, now the reason why I'm not letting him get up is because he needs to wait for my release marker. Good boy. No. And the reason why I'm not telling him down is because I want him to listen to the pressure. Nope. There we go. There we go. Good boy. Good. And I will let him relax. Yes. Good. Wow. And then we give a big reward. Who's a good boy? Oh, wow, wow, wow. Good boy. Look at that. All right, guys. We're going to go ahead and put Shadrach back in the air conditioning. He did a really good job today. All right. These pressure exercises are coming along really nicely. If you guys are practicing this at home, please understand that these are a little more advanced techniques. But if you do have success, or if you have questions, let me know. I'll be happy to answer those questions in the comments to the best of my ability. And always remember, guys, always remember, happy training. We do training because we love our dogs. We train because we know it's what's good for their lives. We want to establish clear communications with our canines. that ultimately develops the best trust and best practices with our canine. Okay? So with that said, we're going to see you on the next video. Are we going to see him on the next video? Okay, not in the mouth. It's a good boy. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time. Let's go, buddy.